Welcome to the Commentary Magazine Daily Podcast. Today is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. I am John Podhoretz, the editor of Commentary Magazine. With me, as always, executive editor Abe Greenwald. Hi, Abe.
Hi, John.
And we got a full house today. Washington commentary columnist Matthew Continetti. Hi, Matt.
Hi, John.
Senior editor Seth Mandel. Hey, Seth.
Sorry. Hey, John.
And media commentary columnist Christine Rosen. Hi, Christine.
Hi, John.
Okay, we got a lot to get through today. Let's just start quickly with the effort at the manufacture of the October surprise, which has clearly been months in the works and involves a kind of an act of collusion between two journalistic organizations, as far as I can tell, the New York Times and the Atlantic, obviously not direct competitors in any usual sense, but ordinarily you don't see something like this where stories are released on the same day on the same subject, featuring the same subject who has taped hours of interviews, video and audio, making the point that Donald Trump is the worst person in the universe. I'm talking, of course, about General John Kelly, who was Homeland Security Secretary and then Chief of Staff to Trump in the White House, who is saying he's a straight up fascist, the worst person who has ever lived, and somebody who kept saying to him things like, I like Hitler's generals, I want Hitler's generals, which, let's just stipulate for a moment that it's really, really terrible to say that you want Hitler's generals. It's a terrible thing. First of all, Hitler's generals, many of them fashioned a plot to assassinate Hitler in 1944. So if Trump said that and meant it, that's really, really stupid of him, because that's the deep state in its chrysalis form. You couldn't get any more deep state than having your generals form the Stauffenberg plot that led to the killings of thousands of military people in Nazi Germany and helped hasten the end of the war because they lost a lot of their high commanders in the last year. Nonetheless, let's stipulate that he said it. It's a disgusting thing to say and all of that. Really? This is it? John Kelly hates Donald Trump. Is that news? Like, are we... This is
that's where the story ends up, because the other supposed bombshell in the story from the Atlantic is a allegation that after offering to pay the burial fees for a deceased service woman, Trump got angry at the price and is charged with saying something like, $60,000 to bury a Mexican. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to pay it. Don't pay it. But that story is contradicted by everyone involved, including the sister of the veteran in question. And so because I think that was supposed to be the main hit.
Right.
And then when it fell apart pretty quickly on social media, because the sister comes out and says, this didn't happen. I was there. Trump was nothing but generous and kind to us. And by the way, I just voted for Trump today.
Right. Yeah, she did that. Mark Meadows, the chief of staff, said it didn't happen. And Mark Meadows' aide, who gave the Atlantic
and on the record denial
was not quoted in the article, and his denial was mischaracterized in the article itself as he would not comment or something.
So that just completely collapsed. And what you're left with then is John Kelly really hates Trump. And I have to say, the Hitler story, that's been reported before.
Right. It's a leftover. It's in Peter Baker's and Susan Glasser's book.
Right.
And again, so look, to say that I hold no brief for Trump, I think is clear to many. And I think he can have a really repulsive sense of humor, and that he has a habit of living his life where he wants to throw the people who work for him, under him, and around him off guard at all times. He wants to pull them up short. He wants to say things to see how they react. maybe it's sadistic, maybe it's some weird, bizarre management style. I don't understand it. But if he is looking at John Kelly in the face and saying, what I need are generals like Hitler's generals, maybe he said it. Probably he said it. I don't know if he said it. But by which I mean, we have Kelly saying that he said it, and we have no other sources that say that he said it. We have sources that say that he said other horrible things. But do you really think he meant it? Like, what does it even mean? It doesn't mean anything.
I want to make a couple points.
John Kelly, I am willing to say anything in your face to see whether or not you are finally going to say, I've had it with you. I'm walking out because I want you to quit, which is what Trump wanted. Trump wanted Kelly to quit. Kelly wouldn't quit. Trump kept finally, and then he fired him.
Which is bizarre on his face because Trump could always fire him at any time. And he weirdly, did. Trump didn't like to fire people, especially in person. So this story comes out, I think, a day after Gallup or Pew found that trust in the media is at an all-time low. And you just put these two things together. Why is trust in the media at an all-time low? Because the media has become politicized. The legacy media has become politicized to an unimaginable degree. And this publication, The Atlantic in particular, you think about the direction that it's taken in the Trump era, it is a political magazine. It's owned by a Harris supporter.
Lauren supporter,
like donor,
close, dear friend. This is like Marty Peretz.
It went out of its way to endorse Harris,
only for the first time in its storied history.
William Dean Howells, is rolling over in his grave. How dare you? Anyway, so then you had the cover. Remember the cover of The Atlantic with like Trump in this weird kind of Stephen King-like Gothic illustration leading the elephant to the post-apocalyptic Capitol. Completely absurd. In just the last week, there was a piece on the Atlantic's website reading that Trump is he's the same as Hitler, Stalin, and Mao. He's all of them put together. It's not just one evil, bloodthirsty, genocidal tyrant. It's all of them together.
No, it's like, really
why
unfair.
can't you believe anything they write about this
guy?
It's
unfair
at this point?
because where was Ivan the Terrible?
Okay,
like,
but this is important. This is important, though. This point Matt is making is important for this reason. What was interesting about the combination of reading first the Atlantic piece and then the New York Times piece about Trump is that it was very clear they should have kept their powder dry on the fascism charges, because what was fascinating to me was you can make a perfectly sustainable, easily reportable claim about Trump's management style, which is that he values loyalty above all, and he thinks that includes generals who should be loyal to him. That includes anyone who works for him. And he doesn't seem to understand the way our system of checks and balances works, and thinks if you're in my administration, your loyalty's to me, not to the Constitution. And there's this fascinating back and forth with Kelly, where he's like, I tried to explain to him, I took an oath to the Constitution, not to him, and he didn't get it. So you could write a fascinating temperamental, look at his temperament, a look at his governing style. Is it because he's a businessman? Is it because he wants to be, is it his vanity? There's fascinating ways to explore why Trump does what he does, why he says what he does, but they have lost their minds. And I think if Melania becomes first lady again, her first Christmas in the White House should be to recreate that Atlantic cover for the Christmas decorations and just sort of like embrace it. They've lost the thread. They've lost the plot.
I don't think they've lost their minds. I literally think that this is a 3-month plan that was executed with John Kelly's cooperation and participation in designing a late hit to come out.
So obvious, though.
Literally 2 weeks before the election, while there's still early voting going on. So in 2000, the Gore team held on to its late hit until the Wednesday before Election Day and had a real huge success with the George W. Bush DUI in 1976. That was a killer moment. One of the most effective political. Now they got to do it 2 weeks early, and this is what they had in their quiver. That's it. They have John Kelly hates Trump.
They've been calling Trump Hitler for 9 years.
Yeah.
And why did they think it would work now? The only upshot is that perhaps some people in the resistance have been radicalized by the rhetoric to the degree that they want to take out Trump, like the two people who tried to kill Trump just in the last 6 months.
Well, maybe the 18 to 21-year-olds who were 9 to 14 when the first Trump was Hitler message was retailed need to hear it now.
But they don't study history anymore. They don't know what World War II was.
They don't know remembering the answers. You have to remember the answers to each generation.
Okay, I mean,
if you're an average American, whatever that is, but if you're not us, if you're not deep in each news cycle and you haven't been following all the quotes by all the figures for all the years, you have heard so many stories about administration figures who don't like Trump, who turned on Trump, who think he's unfit. Some of them have switched parties. Some of them have said, well, I'll vote for him despite the fact that I feel this way. Kamala Harris has been retailing this, we should say now, for months, also talking about listen to the people in his own administration, listen to the people. So for this story, for its intended audience, this is just a blur. This is a blur of people who don't like Trump. Yeah, they know that people don't like Trump. They know that people accuse him of terrible things and of behavior that is shocking in the Oval Office. They have also probably witnessed Trump engaged in behavior that is shocking for someone who occupies the Oval Office.
Okay, I want to talk about media also this morning.
I think that they just one more point on this is just that the attack line here is pretty clear, which is Trump is saying he wants generals who are loyal to him and won't cross him and will do whatever he says. And you muddy that hit by invoking Hitler. And maybe that was Trump's fault for invoking whatever. But the point is that when people hear the story, all they hear is Hitler. They don't hear the point, which is like, it could be Hitler's generals or it could be someone else's generals who were super famously loyal to him, even though Hitler's generals were obviously not famously loyal to Hitler. But the point is, this guy wants his generals wrapped around his finger so that he has so that nothing's holding him back. And the story that comes out ends up being, oh, I think he likes Hitler. And I feel like they downgraded their own possible avenue of attack.
And I just have one more thing about this news cycle, the past 24 hours, is that on the same day that this story comes out and that the New York-Washington media corridor obsesses over it, the current president of the United States in New Hampshire calls for the imprisonment of his political opponent. And no one
who is, by the way,
no one says anything.
Who is being prosecuted by his administration, which means that he has a responsibility, a constitutional responsibility to accept the contention that Donald Trump is innocent until proven guilty.
Well, I think he implicitly revealed that he was behind the prosecution of Trump.
Well, assuming
from the beginning,
that he wasn't, assuming that he wasn't just. I mean, if you watch the clip, first of all, you really are at any moment, he could literally just tilt sideways and fall sideways onto the podium.
Well, did you see his schedule today? He has one brief today, and I'm telling you, they're sending to the beach for 2 weeks. He is not going to be seen or heard from again.
They announced another trip to Arizona, though.
They cannot stop him. They cannot stop him, and
I love this drama.
A campaign aide texted a reporter that maybe we ought to lock Joe up for the next 2 weeks. A Harris campaign.
Yeah, that okay. So that's
we're all having fun with it.
Okay, that is an important piece of data. God knows what we're to make of whatever it is that comes out of Biden's mouth, except that once again, let's remember that there are two major wars going on in which we are side participants, and that he is the president of the United States, and that he should not be president of the United States at this moment, and that there is a mechanism by which he could be at least temporarily removed from the presidency
and the Democratic
due to infirmity.
candidate is the
Yes.
only person who can activate it. Yes.
Well, his cabinet could activate it. A majority vote of his cabinet can activate it, according to the incredibly complicated rules of the 25th Amendment. Nonetheless, he's there, and there we have him. I think that the story of the last 2 weeks is Trump's numbers are creeping up. And David Plouffe, who is not exactly running the Harris campaign, but is one of this troika, or like, I don't know what it is. It's like some hydra-headed monster that's him and Jen O'Malley Dillon, who was running the Biden campaign, and Kamala's sister and Kamala's sister's husband, and, you know, a guy who runs a fruit stand in Alameda, and I don't know, who are running the campaign together in some fashion or other. And Plouffe said, everyone in the Democratic Party seems to think that Trump has a ceiling of 47 and he's going to do better than that, which is like, whoa, really? Like, that's the first time anyone's actually said that including Republicans have said that in my hearing. Because I've still been operating on the idea that, you know, Trump may win, but he'll win with 47, that he has a ceiling. David Plouffe of the Harris campaign just said that's not his ceiling. But we're going to get to 49 or 50. And what is the story of the last two? He is going up over 47. There are polls with him at 50, whatever. She's flat. There is no momentum. She is flat. She is not rising. He is rising a bit. She is staying where it is. And that says to me this, which is she has to do something to win this election affirmatively. Trump is not going to win it for her. Trump's negatives are not going to win it for her. He is the most negatively covered person. He is the best known person on the planet Earth. There isn't an American who doesn't have an opinion of him, including very low information people who don't watch anything and don't pay attention to the news cycle. Everybody practically on the planet Earth has an opinion of Trump, and that opinion is probably pretty well formed. And there he is. And there is nothing. John Kelly could come out and call him a fascist. Somebody can say that, you know, he hates Mexicans. I don't care. He is who he is. She has to win this election in the next 2 weeks. And I watched her interview with Hallie Jackson yesterday. She did it yesterday afternoon. And that woman, unless she goes into a hyperbaric chamber and comes out of a hyperbaric chamber cleansed and fresh and ultra new and ready to go forward,
joyful,
does not have a clue how to win this election. She doesn't have a message. She doesn't know what to say. She was asked issue after issue, and Selena Meyer was better than Kamala was in this interview. Sarah Palin was better with Katie Couric than Kamala Harris was in this interview. She couldn't answer what she knew about Biden and his infirmity. Hallie Jackson came at her from the left on trans issues, said, the trans community may be disappointed. You seem not to be as supportive of them as they were in the past. What do you have to say about that? She didn't know what to say. She doesn't know what to say about the economy.
She had one thing to say that I think could have very downside consequences for her, and that is, in a discussion on abortion, Hallie Jackson asked, should there be exemptions or carve-outs? And Kamala Harris said no, which means she doesn't believe in any religious exemptions for social policy, including abortion and contraception, which means, remember the Little Sisters of the Poor? Well, now they're going to have to be forced to pay for abortions. Catholic hospitals, are they going to have to provide abortion services? This is a very disturbing comment that was almost a throwaway line from Harris, maybe because she didn't think through what she was saying. But for Catholic voters who set this comment in a background of anti-Catholic statements and acts that Kamala Harris has said and done over the course of her career, whether it was essentially likening the Knights of Columbus to the KKK in a judicial hearing when she was senator, whether it's her stance on issues like abortion. And now this kind of just flippant attitude toward religious liberty in the United States, I think that will hurt her. And right now, we know that Trump and his campaign in particular are going after Catholic voters in the Rust Belt. And this is ammunition for Trump's campaign. There's no question about it.
She's become very comfortable because she's a California Democrat of talking about abortion as a right and never having to think about other rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. Abortion is not a right. Religious freedom, religious liberty is indeed a right. No, I know, shocking, right?
What are you saying?
I think Matt's
Handmaid's
absolutely right
Tale.
because it signals her bubble is something she's not been able to get out of, and that is part of the problem. I mean, I think she really struggles to see the world from anyone else's point of view.
Her version of getting out of the bubble is in saying, "I am a pragmatic capitalist." That's her.
Let me be clear. Let me be clear.
Yeah. I am I'm not. Donald Trump calls you a communist. I am not a communist. I am a pragmatic capitalist. That's like, wow, what a concession.
Right.
She is really moving to the center. I am not a communist. Congratulations, Kamala Harris. No, but I was really struck by this Hallie Jackson interview, which with the 2 months of us, like, where's her interview? And she needs an interview and all that. And then she did the interview with 60 Minutes. So that was whatever it was. And then she did the interview with Bret Baier, and Bret Baier was too combative and all of this. I encourage everybody listening to me to go watch this 21-minute interview.
It's on YouTube. You can find it.
Hallie Jackson. It is a model of the form. Jackson is polite. She is respectful. She is energetic. And she follows up. And the entire interview was, let's see if we can zero in on the things that people don't either seem to know about you or questions that they still seem to be raising about you. Nothing more.
Yeah. Well,
nothing
good luck.
more. Right. But that's exactly the point. Her incredible level of discomfort with being asked a question. I don't think this is determinative of whether or not she will win or lose the election, but there's 13 days to go. She has to win the election. And she's not winning the election. I'm not sure she's losing the election, but she is not winning the election. And I think that is why the people that I know, I've been running into people, it's anecdotal, right? I'm running into people on the Upper West Side, journalists of my acquaintance for many decades and others who live in my neighborhood. And last 2 or 3 days, several of them have said, well, Trump's going to win. I think it's just, I feel it. They hate Trump. They don't want him to win. They're terrified, all of that. And that's her doing. That's not Trump's doing. Trump, with the exception of the McDonald's photo op, Trump's not doing anything that is making them think, well, Trump has it in the bag.
I wonder if the timing of all this has something to do with this, the sense I'm beginning to get, which is a kind of a meltdown on the Harris side, in that what it took for journalists to start actually asking the questions, the tough questions, was the first one, which I think I put with the 60 Minutes interview. That was the first time the clip started making the rounds where she was being pressed on her questions. There was follow-up. They were saying, he said, we're in the real world to Kamala. And then that made the other journalists look so foolish for softballing her for this long. Had they not softballed her for the extent of time that they had to begin with, maybe it's conceivable that interviews would have gone bad earlier. There would have been some time to right the ship, to switch strategies. But the swarm has now happened so late in the game. I don't know where they go between today and Election Day.
And also there's the other thing, which is that Abe, you tweeted yesterday a funny comment on top of a story from The Hill. The headline of the story was, "Maybe Biden was the better candidate all along."
Oh yeah.
Right. And you tweeted something like, "This is where we are now." But that's what's happening here, is that's the other possibility, which is that no matter how long she had to practice, she wouldn't have nailed it. And this is just her, right? This is in other words, this is people starting to wonder if the old senile guy was actually just flat out better on the trail.
Okay, look, you know what? I think that is an amusing angle. And, there's a lot of content. People are producing a lot of content every hour, trying to get somebody to pay attention. The guy that we saw in New Hampshire yesterday would not be a better candidate than
He'd lose
Kamala
48
Harris now.
states. Yeah.
I have to say, he's 81. I mean, the decline is, my dad is like almost 95, there is never. I mean, he's in pretty good shape, but I mean, like, Biden looks older than my father does, and he is the lack of crispness in his ability to respond, and then saying the thing that he's not supposed to say, which is, what do you do on a campaign trail? Above all, right? It's literally the Hippocratic Oath, like, do no harm. And he just he just gave Trump $10 million worth of ammunition in New Hampshire last night.
And, we should just highlight, too, the moment in the Hallie Jackson interview where Harris was asked about Biden and Biden's condition. And Harris continued with the line that she has used throughout the campaign, saying that Joe Biden is amazing and wonderful and perfectly capable to be president. And then Hallie Jackson followed up by saying, well, then why are you the nominee?
Yeah.
And it was a moment of just complete
She said it's
on her face.
Yeah.
She had no idea for a moment what to say.
So this is where I think these things are interesting preparations for where things like this actually do matter when you're thinking about how to choose a president. Because she needs to think on her feet, right? She's president of the United States. She gets a phone call from the president of Lithuania, who says 75,000 Russians have just moved to my border. What do I do? And if her line is, my values are the same as they've always been, as opposed to giving any
I grew up in a middle-class family.
Giving any indication
Putin.
that she is capable of creative thought, of a kind of a response to a question that has not been pre-programmed, all of that, there is something to the idea that she is showing us that she is manifestly unprepared to be president by her behavior on the campaign trail. Like, I don't ordinarily think that is the right way to judge somebody, but given that we don't have anything else, right? We don't have policy prescriptions. We don't have a series of substantive speeches where she has laid out her agenda for NATO.
And we don't have any significant divergence from the administration of which she has been a part since 2021.
Right. Remember the fourth term of Obama line, right?
Yeah.
Who that you said, who was it?
Kotkins.
Kotkin, right. Yeah, Kotkin, right. So the Little Sisters of the Poor and the idea that there should be no religious exemptions on abortion is the fourth term of the Obama administration. We know about the Little Sisters of the Poor because they sued over Obamacare provisions, and the Obama administration took them to court.
Sued the nuns.
There should be no religious exemptions to Obamacare. So
and they're called
she's not
Little
only
Sisters of the Poor. Like, who's your PR advisor there? I'm going to sue the Little Sisters of the Poor. Obama, the Little Sisters of the Poor is with the headline I want.
Yeah. So if you didn't like the Biden, if you don't want the second term of the Biden administration, how are you going to feel about the fourth term of the Obama administration? Bringing back the old band together, and everything that we know about how the Harris campaign works or is done well involves money and endorsements. So she's got $1 billion. She's got Eminem introducing Obama,
Springsteen's playing for her soon. Yeah,
Springsteen tonight.
Obama,
Lizzo.
Obama is on the trail more than she is.
Yeah,
she was not on the trail yesterday.
Yeah,
Apparently she spent the entire day preparing for that interview, which was terrible.
And that calls back to an actually a very important point, which is we've discussed before about the funny story that Ben Rhodes tells about how Obama approached Hillary in the waning days of the 2016 campaign and said, "How can I help? Where do you need me?" And she said, "Well, we could use some help in Michigan." And Obama responded, "Michigan? That's not good."
Yeah,
she's sending him to Michigan. Like, we're replaying bizarrely, like, okay, it's the waning days. We still have
yesterday.
Let's send Obama to Michigan.
But he's not the same draw he used to be either, though. Younger voters they think he's terrible, and the hectoring tone has not played well with the passage.
Well, there was another MSNBC moment from yesterday, which I thought was interesting. Not that I'm watching MSNBC, it's just these clips are passed to me.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, well, I just want to make that clear to the audience. You know,
so
it's not like I'm mainlining MSNBC when I'm not here recording this podcast. But it was Alex Wagner, the MSNBC anchor, talking to a group of black men, I think in Philadelphia. I'm not sure the location. But Wagner asked the group how they felt about Obama on the trail. And one of the black male voters in the focus group said, "I thought it was the most disgusting and condescending thing I've ever experienced," which shows that there is definitely a change in attitude toward the Obama method of hectoring and bullying long-standing constituents of the Democratic Party to go out and vote.
But he knows the words "to lose yourself."
Okay,
by
Eminem. Right. That makes it all better. Yes,
he did. And Eminem, let's be fair, Eminem is a brilliant lyricist, and I don't blame Obama for memorizing his lyrics. And I congratulate him. It's like when he sang Al Green. It's a fun moment. Could use more. If Harris could do "Lose Yourself" to Eminem, that would actually be like a good moment for her. Because it would be something other than saying she's
a Tupac fan, remember? So yeah, have to be Tupac.
Do you think? Here's a question for you. Do you think Harris will go to a McDonald's in the final weeks of the campaign?
Huh.
Do you think you don't think she'll ever step foot in the McDonald's?
No, because she can't now.
She campaigns like a blue state elite. She is a blue state elite.
But
that's how
there's
she campaigns.
No way she can now because she would be unfavorably compared.
Yes.
To Trump. What is she?
But I guess she would also have to answer questions about Golden Arches Gate.
Yeah.
Well, and they also
we still don't have any answers.
They also decided that this was a stunt and a photo op, and it wasn't really open, and this and that. So it'd be impossible for her to follow up that and do literally the same thing because the talking heads that support her have decided that this was actually a bad thing that Trump did.
Okay, so one last thing, and then I want to turn to the Middle East. Tim Walz was out yesterday on the campaign trail, unlike Kamala Harris, and decided to make a focus of his appearances yesterday, Elon Musk. So he goes at Elon Musk now and says he was jumping around like a dipshit.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
the world's richest man.
Okay. So here's the thing. Elon Musk is a figure of controversy. I listened to an NPR report this morning on the NPR 5-minute newscast. They do a sort of 5-minute newscast. Very peculiar thing about Twitter. Like it was usually they just do headlines and like actual news events. By the way, one of the headlines I should just to because I'm old and now going off in all directions like Biden was that according to a new UN economics report, it will take 350 years for Gaza to return to the economic condition that it was in on October 6th. Let me repeat that for you. It will take 350 years, according to the UN, for Gaza simply
so don't
to
start a war.
return.
Don't start a war.
No.
If the UN is in charge,
been
it
a
would
nice
take
place.
it would take that long.
Yes. 350 years ago, the Industrial Revolution had not yet happened. So let's just stipulate that the notion that you can look forward into the future 350 years when basically Gaza is a city, London was partially destroyed, Hiroshima was destroyed, Nagasaki was destroyed. Gee, I think they've recovered since then. And London recovered in about 10 years. And
they didn't have the Saudis to write a check. The Saudis could write one check.
Anyway,
that would rebuild Gaza.
NPR does this story with complete credulousness. In case you were wondering whether or not vehicles of the American media are propaganda arms of Hamas and anti-Israel forces in the Middle East. Anyway, that's a side note to what I was going to mention, which is the story about Elon Musk, which is Twitter is now totally unfair. Musk bought Twitter, and sadly, without the word sadly, no other social media platform has come along to take its place as the public square of the internet. But Musk has 200 million followers, and he's tweeting all kinds of positive stuff about Trump. And people are being pro-Trump on Twitter, and it's just terrible. Why is it terrible? The report doesn't say why it's terrible, except that, of course, you are to presume that Trump is terrible. And then this happens with the dipshit comment and all this on a day when it is revealed that Bill Gates, who is not currently the world's richest man, but I believe would constantly be, over the course of the last 40 years, the richest person on earth, on average over the past 40 years, in one fell swoop donated $50 million to a Kamala Harris nonprofit super PAC. I don't even understand what a nonprofit Kamala Harris super PAC is, but he gave $50 million to one. So you know what that says to me? It says to me, okay, so Trump has Musk, Harris has all these tech bros aside from David Sachs and Joe LeConte and whoever else is at Palantir, and she has everybody else in Silicon Valley. And you are really going to now start making the case to me that Elon Musk alone is winning the election for Trump through illegitimate and illicit means? Also, Elon Musk will be remembered in the history books as maybe the most important industrialist of the 21st century, certainly one of the top 5. He just caught a rocket with a couple of pincers so that it could be reused. We're going to use him to save astronauts from a space station where they can't get off of because Boeing has collapsed. He's a complicated person, and he's not necessarily admirable person, but
it's simple.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It's simple because Elon Musk has a fan base, an incredibly large fan base, and Tim Walz does not. There are many, many people throughout the world who admire Elon Musk. Many of them are younger men. And Tim Walz, I don't know who likes Tim Walz. I mean, I'm not even sure Kamala Harris likes Tim Walz at this point. But what is the response?
They vibed, Matt.
Yeah, they vibed. They vibed for like 2 weeks in August. And since then, I don't know what's been going on. The response from Team Blue to the dynamic you've described on this podcast, Trump is winning something. We're not sure if it's even the election, but he's winning something past couple of weeks. And she's stalling. The response from Team Blue has been to attack men. Attack men, attack black men. You're not doing enough, says Obama. Attack white men, says all the liberals in the media. And now we're attacking Elon Musk, who, in addition to being one of the great men of our time, whether you like him or not, has this huge fan base. And the defensiveness or the sense that there's no clear strategy here with the Harris folks, right? You're on the trail with Sarah Longwell and Liz Cheney. Then you do an interview with Hallie Jackson where you can't answer the simplest questions. Then you got Tim Walz attacking Elon Musk. In a Daily Show interview, Walz said, well, we have, this line he uses, we have the best coalition in America. We have everybody from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift. And Jon Stewart, to Jon Stewart's credit, said, hold it. I don't think you should be bragging about having Dick Cheney, right? At least Jon Stewart's being intellectually consistent over a generation, right? And Walz didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to say. I have this feeling like they're not quite sure, A, what's happening, or B, what to do about it.
I think there's this larger thing that's happening here, and what's driving the media crazy, and what's driving the news media and social media and celebrity world crazy. Trump has, over time, kind of upended the cultural paradigm to some degree in terms of who are the cool kids and who's sort of old and beaten up. And when I was thinking about it, when you were talking about Obama coming out with Eminem, how Obama doesn't have the kind of charm, the effect that he had. Even if you think of Eminem, he still looks like a kid or whatever he looks like. But he's kind of he's kind of something from the past. That song is of another era. Musk is a totally new, they don't know what to do with Musk. It's a new Twitter. He's changed Twitter. Trump's, even though Kamala tries to capture the joy mantle, Trump's appearance at McDonald's is nothing but joyful. And it's like, none of this should be, it's supposed to be that the Republicans are the crusty, out of touch, nothing, irrelevant to the culture people. And whatever Trump is, and the Musk piece is a part of this, he's made himself very relevant to the culture in a way that Democrats are grasping at being.
I don't think that he is a part of it. I think you and Matt have put your finger on something that I literally did not think of before, which is Musk is Taylor Swift.
Right.
So Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala. That's very big. She's the biggest entertainment figure in the world right now. Elon Musk is a gargantuan popular culture, commercial, scientific, transcending figure. And he is a new thing, as you say, because he's actually not a new thing. He's kind of like an old 19th century, early 20th century version of one of these polymathic scientific guys who just spreads his wings across everything.
And even his own career goes back now 3 decades with PayPal.
3 decades, right? So
and
he has never stopped being the person who started PayPal, right? 10 years ago, he looked a little Meshuggah, right? He looked totally Meshuggah. He was going to dig a tunnel system in LA to get you to the airport in 10 minutes with Hyperloop. And he was going to do this and he was going to do that. And then SpaceX and other things sort of took a turn, and he became a much larger figure as a he could have been a flash in the pan, or just one of those people you stop paying attention to, or Mark Zuckerberg, who sort of flew off the deep end and became a bodybuilder and surfs in a suit and renames his company and says, I'm going to live in virtual reality. Musk is something else and other, and the only other person like him is Jeff Bezos. And this is new. So if he is on Trump's side, he immediately makes Trump new again when Trump is 78 years old and is old and has the verbal solecisms of a Borscht Belt comedian and, wears a suit of a sort that no human being under the age of 65 wears in the United States, and wears a tie at the McDonald's fry thing.
Okay, but that
doesn't right. Okay,
one beat on that. That's actually an important thing, because a lot of people were mocking him on the left for having done that. but he's just like, it's like the Queen of England. She dresses up to show respect. He wore what he wears, whether he's in McDonald's or he's on a campaign speech. That
Dress
shows
the
respect.
job you want.
Respect and authenticity. And the authenticity is Kamala's Achilles heel. She doesn't have it. He does, whether he's serving up fries in a McDonald's. He doesn't play act at being anyone other than he is. And that's actually something that the American voter really craves.
And this is what drives the people who dislike him, including me in some ways, so crazy, which is that the person he is often really gross and is not what I want the United States to be projecting to the world in terms of who we are, what we stand for, what our values are, and all of that. But she ain't either. I mean, a person who can't answer a question, a person who, can't speak a sentence without it becoming a word salad, and a person whose views are entirely elastic about everything at any time based on whatever focus group says what to who. I don't want that either. And so, his authenticity is a problem. Her inauthenticity is a problem. He is closing the sale in some way or other that we, incrementally, bit by bit. He was at 40% favorability. He's now at around 40. He is at a higher favorability rating than he's had since he came down the escalator.
I just want to add to my point about this, about the cultural shift here. I think this has a lot to do also with his the fact that his numbers among black voters are going up too. He's got a certain cachet among certain segment of the hip hop world, which isn't supposed to happen in American politics. They're not supposed to be interested in Republicans. And Democrats don't know what to do with that. The Harris ticket certainly doesn't know what to do with that.
There's one more thing about the Musk thing in terms of why it's upsetting them, and that is that Elon Musk called the left's bluff, right? We had the same discussion, the argument over Twitter before Musk took it over. It was censoring conservatives all over the place, right? Not only conservatives, yes, people on the left, occasionally got suspended or banned or whatever, but the big complaint from conservatives was the social media sphere is crowding us out because Democrats in Congress and the White House told them to. That's unfair. And the response from the left was, then build your own Twitter. It wasn't Twitter should be fair. It wasn't it is fair, you just don't realize it. It was if you guys on the right want a Twitter, go make a Twitter. And for a while it failed spectacularly because the one or two attempts at making a right-wing Twitter turned out to be like, those sort of alt-right type of, Groyper central type places. But then Musk bought Twitter. And he said, you know what? Everybody back in the pool. There was like a mass amnesty of people that had been banned and suspended and stuff like that. And now the complaint is not that lefties are getting banned from Twitter. The complaint is that righties are not any longer getting banned from Twitter. And so Musk just basically did what they told him to do. Well, if you guys on the right want some kind of freewheeling, leans to the right politically owned social media thing, then build it. So Musk did. And I think that really bothers them because the response now to his critics over the Twitter stuff should be, then you build it. Jack Dorsey built a new Twitter. It didn't take off. Blue Sky, Instagram.
Threads.
We talked about Mark, right? Trends. It was the Instagram version. It had this, built-in system. I mean, so people are doing it, but it's like, that's the response. Like, then go build it. And their response is like, as if they're entitled to not have to do that. Only people on the right should have to exit the main conversation and build their own outlying satellite.
That's exactly. Okay, so that's ultimately that's.
And
exactly
I think there's just to follow up on that because I think it's a very interesting point, Seth, and it makes me think about kind of conservative strategy. and then, there's always this debate among conservatives: is do you create counter institutions or do you fight for control of institutions that already exist? Of course, Musk didn't make his own Twitter. He bought Twitter, and he made it a free speech zone. So that actually suggests the potential route is gaining control of institutions that are already established rather than trying to create your own, which all the examples you point out don't have the reach that this long established institution in tech world does.
And you know who else did that and changed America and the world and is hated but more than anybody else on earth? Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch came to the United States. He bought the San Antonio Light. He bought the Boston Herald. He bought the New York Post. He bought the Fox television stations. He created the Fox broadcast network. Then he created the Fox News channel using pre-existing
right. And the
entities.
other example is the judiciary, of course, right? Where it's not as though the conservatives decided to create their own legal system, but they created the Federalist Society, which works within the legal academy, and then has, of course, changed our jurisprudence dramatically. So it's an interesting thought.
Anyway, I think, So, no, the idea is that people on the right are illegitimate and shouldn't be allowed to speak. That is basically where we are.
That's where we go.
And it's all fair, you see, because Trump is Hitler. So if you could go back in time and kill baby Hitler, you would go back in time and kill baby Hitler. And if you can, if what is necessary for the preservation of free speech is to make sure that half of the country doesn't have it, then let's preserve free speech. By all means, that's only fair. Okay, we're running long, but we did want to talk a little bit about the fact that Antony Blinken went to Israel yesterday in the wake of Sinwar's death, in the wake of the Israeli successes in combating Hezbollah in Lebanon, and arrived in Israel to say to Benjamin Netanyahu, we need a ceasefire, and where's the food for Gaza? Where is that food? Send in the food. So the clown show that is the Biden administration, which has this moment at which it could actually, if it had any seriousness of purpose whatsoever, is don't go to Israel, go to Doha, fly to Qatar, as our friend Jonathan Shanzer says, and say, kick Khalid Mashal out of the Four Seasons and take his money. Not only not give him money, but take his money. We have a military base in your country that it gives you a lot of benefits. This war is over. Israel has won it. Switch sides, get our hostages out, or maybe we'll find another place for our military base. Or maybe we will start sanctioning your officials or something. Instead, he goes to a friendly country that has now taken out more terrorists who have killed Americans in the last 6 weeks than America has taken out in the last 50 years. And he's yelling at the prime minister about food aid to Gaza.
I have a theory here, which is that I think Blinken must be a real podcast devotee. Like, he must have a lot of podcasts he needs to listen to. Maybe he really has like a backlog on his Kindle. He needs time to himself. And that's why he's now made his 11th trip. I mean, those are long plane rides. And I know from my own experience, really, a plane ride is the only time I can catch up on content. So I just think, I have a feeling that he's been using this time not to pursue a peace deal, which, as you say, is completely irrelevant at this point. Certainly not to get tough on Iran, which I hope we spend a moment on in a minute, but really just to kind of get through that backlog. You know, Netflix, Hulu, podcasts, Kindle. There's so much to read and to consume. I hope that he's using his time productively as he travels the world for no other purpose whatsoever.
Let's talk about Iran and the United States as we still sit on the precipice of some form of Israeli response to the second ballistic missile assault on Israel a couple of weeks ago. Yesterday, the Justice Department indicted senior official in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, that is like the Marines of Iran, for involvement in a plot 2 years ago to assassinate Masih Alinejad, I don't know what you'd call her exactly. She's a sort of Iranian feminist, or she's someone who advocates for women's rights in Iran. She's an Iranian activist who has been forced to go into exile and is working.
And who has had previous threats on her life.
No, this is all someone was arrested outside her house with a rifle, intending to kill her. And the person who's been indicted is the person who was funding the assassination attempt. So that's happening on American soil. And the Justice Department has indicted a member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard for attempting to assassinate. You know who else they're trying to assassinate? Donald Trump. You know who else they tried to assassinate? John Bolton. Salman
Rushdie attacked.
Of course, Salman Rushdie attacked. So why aren't we using our capabilities to destroy their nuclear program along with Israel's counterstrike? They are, we are told, interfering in the U.S. election. They are trying to kill people on U.S. soil. They are sending firing ballistic missiles at an ally. And we're talking about food aid in Gaza.
And a potential leak of documents revealing Israeli plans and preparations for a potential counterstrike. I mean, we're not only not apathetic to what the Iranian regime is doing on our soil, we're actually working against punishing Iran for any of these things. The idea that this leak or hack of the American intelligence on the Israeli preparations would occur, and the pro forma response from the Biden administration is, well, we're going to investigate.
Yes, they're compromised. They are internally compromised.
Just like we investigated Jack Teixeira, just like we investigated Reality Winner or Edward Snowden or Chelsea Manning, going back now over a decade. We can investigate our intelligence system all we want. It is very difficult, it seems to me, to keep any secrets any longer. How about we do some action? Why don't we actually take action? Why don't we say, you know what, we are going to back Israel forcefully in the justified response to the Iranian attack, and we're not going to put guardrails on the Israeli response. We're not going to say you can't hit the nuke sites, you can't hit the refineries, you can't hit the oil storage. Why don't we say we back the general's plan for Gaza? And you know what? Forget about the food. We're going to give moments to evacuate the civilians from northern Gaza, and then we're going to put a cordon around it. And we back Israel in doing that to finally put the end to Hamas. And why don't we sell Israel the weapons platforms and capabilities to take out the nuclear plants without our help? We could do that as well. Instead, we just sit in our seats and say, we're very concerned. We're so concerned.
Okay, can we talk about the general's plan for literally 30 seconds? General's plan involves the creation, essentially, of a DMZ in Gaza, a plot of land to separate out Israeli territory from Palestinian territory that would be a DMZ. And this has become a matter of grave concern to the international pieces of garbage who have decided that this is a terrible idea, when obviously DMZs are a great idea. That's why we've had one for 70 years on the Korean Peninsula, keeping the peace. But this is bad. It's a bad idea. The general's plan. It's a bad idea. Blinken went over to say, we don't like this idea. And Bibi and Ron Dermer said, we don't endorse the general's plan. We do not support the general's plan. So rather than saying, oh, that's great, thanks so really, okay, I'm really relieved, actually, you don't endorse the general's plan, that's great, let's move on. They said, well, why don't you issue a statement saying that you don't endorse the general's plan? because you got these right wingers in your government and they endorse the general's plan. You better issue a statement. I want a statement. And and basically they said, no, we're not going to issue a statement. We're not going to telegraph our military strategies to our enemies. Thank you very much. Get back on the plane and watch 10 hours of Bad Monkey, you idiot. Matt, I gather that you have.
I was before I do that, I just going to say, why should Israel telegraph their plans when America will do it for them?
Right. So, and since Bad Monkey has been recommended both by Seth and by me, I'm going to assume that your recommendation is not Bad Monkey.
But it is not. And by the way, I heard through the grapevine that you had a disrecommendation on the Lin-Manuel Miranda concept album, which I have to say I agree with your disrecommendation.
Okay.
Sadly, yes, I did listen to it myself independently of you. But then
you weren't even on a plane, and you weren't even.
I was on a train. This is why I've been thinking about this, because it is true. Travel is inconvenient in many ways, but it is also the only time I can catch up on culture, except for certain cultural products, which I immediately seize on, and of course that includes Michael Connelly. Anything Michael Connelly writes, and my favorite mystery novelist has a new book out. It's called The Waiting. It's the latest Renee Ballard, Harry Bosch novel. Just released last week. I'm enjoying it thoroughly. About 3/4 of the way through. 3 different mysteries so far, including revisiting the Black Dahlia mystery, which has been a kind of leitmotif throughout the Bosch series. And so I heartily recommend the latest Ballard and Bosch novel by Michael Connelly called The Waiting. You know, there are now, I think, something like 28 Connelly novels. He has 3 main characters, main series, and there's certainly, I think, like 20 Bosch and now Ballard novels. So don't feel intimidated by the fact that you're starting so late in the series. If this is your first, he does fill in some information. And just in my own experience, having been a enthusiastic fan of Michael Connelly for about a decade, you can start anywhere. And you'll get it. You'll get into his writing and his mysteries.
Okay, before we go, I feel obliged. I received over a Twitter DM a remarkable document from fans of the podcast that I have shared with my colleagues here that I believe that I need to read a little bit of to you guys. It is fans of the podcast who have some kind of a group chat, have fashioned what they call the commentary podcast drinking game. And there are basic rules in the drinking game, which I will share with you. Drink responsibly is rule number 1. Number 2, all players should have their beverage of choice ready, and the game can be played while listening to any episode. All right, so here are the specific rules. Most of them apply, sadly, to me personally. You take one drink when J-Pod 1 interrupts specifically Seth Mandel mid-sentence. 2 says, I'm not going to insult so-and-so, and then immediately insults them. 3 uses the word psychotic to describe any situation or person. 4 tells a story about editing someone's work or discovering talent. 5 mentions obscure Broadway knowledge. 6 starts a sentence with, but let me tell you something, which I did not know was a tick of mine. So I'm now going to have to watch that. 7 claims ties to the Midwest because that's where he sends his kids to camp. And I have to say, this last one I'm deeply offended by because it's not just that I send my kids to camp there. My mother is from St. Paul, Minnesota. So how dare you drinking buddies? I have roots. I have deep roots in the Midwest and can do an excellent Minnesota accent.
You were raised in a middle-class family, okay?
Better than Tim Walz's, who himself is actually not from Minnesota. Okay.
By the way, can I just make a recommendation on the drinking game? We should do a Purim episode.
Excellent. Okay, well, we will keep that in mind. That comes
when you are
March.
Supposed to.
Yes, when you're supposed to get drunk, we will maybe have a drinking game episode. Okay. Other commentary regulars. Take one drink when 1, anyone refers to someone as their friend, especially Tom Cotton. 2, Christine is mentioned in connection with martial arts. 3, any mention of spy novels. 4, someone has to redirect the conversation back to the original topic after a JPod tangent. 5, someone makes an "it's worse than that" pronouncement. And 6, someone says crushing morosity. And now, take 2 drinks when multiple people chime in together, but it's worse than that.
See, now this is where I'm offended. How did I let my catchphrase out of my grasp? But now it belongs to everyone?
No, it's yours,
That's
Abe. It's
what
always
happens
yours.
with
That's
But you should
catchphrases.
know,
I guess
Abe.
you're right.
I got
You
Abe, I got a
belong to
message.
the you belong
I got a
to
message
the
on Twitter
ages now.
yesterday, Abe, from a fan who wanted to know when he can get his Abe Greenwald "It's Worse Than That" T-shirt. So in the minds of the fans,
Isn't that
it is yours.
the Fred Willard character in Best in Show? Was he had the famous catchphrase, or what just happened? It was some Fred Willard character in a Christopher Guest film that he was known for his catchphrase.
Well, I
so
want
are you.
Yes.
I want to
Yes.
thank one listener who actually made it's worse than that mug and sent it to me. Thank
It's
you.
true. It's a beautiful
on my
mug.
desk.
Yes. Now the other 2 I have to say are this is the 2 drinks. I interrupt someone 3 times in under 1 minute. And finally, when if I ask if someone else is taking crazy pills. So that is the Commentary Podcast drinking game designed by a group of young professionals connected to the Tikva Fund. And we thank them for their stewardship, their care, their concern, their obsession.
They should have to drink when we do math, though. They really should. They should have to drink when we do math.
That's true. Okay, well,
I want to drink when we do math.
Okay, we are now going to have to add rules to. If you have drinking game rules that you want to add to the Commentary drinking game rules that we might play Purim, please email us at podcast@commentary.org, and we will see if we can create. Maybe we'll have a fantasy drinking game league when this is all over. I still don't understand fantasy leagues, so I don't know that I can design that, but we'll have to make do. Anyway, thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. For Abe, Matt, Seth, and Christine, I'm John Podhoretz. Keep the candle burning.